The knock came before sunrise. 3 sharp hits that sounded like a verdict. I hadn't slept. I was still staring at the ceiling, replaying the moment I told my neighbor, "You deserve better," and watching her face crumble like a wall with a hidden crack. When I opened the door, she stood there barefoot, eyes swollen, clutching trash bag stuff so full they strained at the seams. Her hands were shaking. Behind her, the street was quiet, as if it was holding its breath. "He's gone," she said, and I brought proof. The night before, the shouting through the shared wall had been louder than usual. I'd heard plates shatter, a chair scrape, her voice breaking into that soft apology she always used when he cornered her. I don't know what possessed me. Maybe the months of watching bruises appear and vanish. Maybe the way he'd smirk when he saw me. When the noise stopped, I knocked on her door. He answered, smiling like a salesman. I waited until he turned away and said it to her, barely louder than a whisper. "You deserve better." Her eyes locked onto mine. He laughed and slammed the door. Now she was here with bags. I stepped aside, and she spilled into my apartment, set them down, and began emptying her life onto my floor. Phone bills with his name hidden under aliases. Screenshots of messages sent at 2:11 a.m. to someone he called cousin. Bank statements showing withdrawals that didn't make sense. A USB drive labeled in marker, tax. And at the bottom of the last bag, a thick manila envelope, creased from being opened and closed too many times. "I was scared," she said. "I thought if I left, he'd ruin me. But when you said that, it was like someone turned on a light." She slid the envelope toward me. Inside were copies of contracts, his contracting business, the one he bragged about at barbecues. The dates were wrong. The signatures were sloppy. The amounts didn't match the deposits in the statements. I didn't promise revenge. I promised clarity. But clarity can be ruthless. We started small. I helped her find a lawyer who specialized in quiet exits. She moved out that afternoon while he was at work, leaving nothing behind that he could throw. I walked her to the car. He drove by, slowed, and glared. I smiled like a neighbor who had just watered their plants. Then the phone calls began. First to the accountant listed on his website. A polite question about a discrepancy I'd noticed while comparing invoices. Then to the city office, asking about permits that never existed. Then to a supplier whose name appeared on 3 different bills, each spelled differently. I didn't accuse. I asked. Questions are a trapdoor when someone has been building on air. A week later, the manila envelope went to the tax authority, along with a letter that read like concern, not condemnation. The USB drive followed. The city scheduled an inspection. His supplier froze his account pending review. He knocked on my door that night, sweat darkening his collar, eyes bloodshot. "You think you're smart?" he hissed. I told him I thought honesty was contagious. He threatened me. I recorded it. Meanwhile, she rebuilt. She slept through the night. She laughed at the coffee shop. She got a job that didn't require permission to breathe. She told me she'd always thought revenge had to be loud. She was wrong. The inspection turned into an audit. The audit turned into a freeze. He sold his truck. He stopped smiling. When he tried to spin a story at the block party, someone mentioned the city notice taped to his door. When he tried to borrow money, a bank manager asked about the flagged accounts. He learned what it felt like to be watched by systems that don't flinch. He came back one last time, furious and hollow. "You ruined me," he said. I stepped outside so the neighbors could hear. "No," I said calmly. "You did that. We just stopped pretending." The final twist arrived in a plain envelope addressed to her. A settlement offer. No admission of guilt. A number big enough to mean freedom. She signed it with steady hands. The next morning, she brought me coffee and said she was moving somewhere with windows that caught the sunrise. Weeks later, the building was quiet. The shared wall felt thicker. I passed him once on the stairs, carrying a box of papers, eyes on the floor. He didn't look at me. He didn't need to. The revenge wasn't the collapse of his business, or the whispers, or the notices. It was the way he lost the stage he'd built, the audience he'd bullied, the silence that followed him everywhere. Sometimes people think revenge is fire. Sometimes it's light. I told my neighbor she deserved better. She believed me, and the truth did the rest.